Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into, well, a really fascinating snapshot, the global waste management market. We're looking at where things stand in 2025 based on a pretty insightful recent report.
That's right.
Now, when you think waste management, maybe you just picture your household bin, but honestly, this is a massive economic engine.
Huge.
And it's going through some really rapid changes that are probably going to affect all of us, really.
Absolutely. It's easy to overlook, isn't it?
Yeah.
But managing all the stuff the world throws away,
Yeah.
it's deeply complex.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more critical, for our economies and obviously for the environment.
Yeah.
This report, it really lays out the sheer scale of it all. I think the numbers might surprise a few people.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The headline figure for 2025, the global market size is pegged at USD 252.6 million.
Hmm.
I mean, that's quite a sum, isn't it? And it's definitely not standing still. The report projects a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR.
Right. The average yearly growth.
Exactly. For those keeping score, it's basically the average growth each year over a period, and they're projecting 6.00% between 2025 and 2033.
Wow.
Yeah, which pushes the market value up to USD 2,155.83 million by 2033. So yeah, we're talking significant expansion
Yeah.
globally.
That 6% growth, it really tells the story, doesn't it?
It does.
It speaks volumes about, well, the mounting pressure of just more waste being generated everywhere, but, also the growing opportunities for like innovation and investment in how we handle it.
And we're not just talking about one kind of trash here, are we? This report, it casts a really wide net. It covers everything from municipal solid waste, your everyday household stuff,
Yeah, basics.
to the huge amounts of waste from industries and that ever-growing headache of e-waste, old phones, computers, all that.
Electronic waste, yeah.
Yeah.
A big one.
And then, of course, you've got the services that make it all work. Collection, recycling, landfill, incineration. It's a really interconnected system.
Exactly. And, to really get the nuances, each of these categories, they operate with their own unique set of challenges and opportunities too. The way you manage industrial byproducts is like fundamentally different from dealing with a pile of old laptops.
Right. Okay. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think, seeing the global picture. The report breaks it down region by region, and there are some pretty big differences and some clear frontrunners in terms of growth.
Yeah, the regional differences are stark.
So let's start in North America. It currently holds the biggest piece of the pie, right?
It's North America's the leader currently. It accounts for over 40% of the global market. The total size there is about USD 371.97 million for 2025.
Okay.
And if you break that down, the U.S. market is, well, it's substantial. USD 293.48 million with a projected CGR of about 4.5% through 2033.
Still growing steadily then.
Yep. Then you've got Canada with a market of around USD 44.64 million, but actually a slightly higher growth rate forecast, 5.5%. And Mexico is at USD 33.85 million, looking at about 5.2% growth.
So for North America, what are the main things driving that market? What's pushing it?
Well, the report points to a couple of key things. One is definitely rising environmental awareness among people.
Mm-hmm.
And alongside that, a growing push from both consumers and, regulators towards more sustainable ways of disposal. There's a real shift. You could feel it away from just like burying everything in the ground.
Okay, makes sense. Now let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe, they hold, what, over 30% of the market?
That's right. For 2025, the European waste market is valued around USD 328.68 million. And the growth forecast there is about 4.8% CAGR.
And within Europe, any standouts?
Yeah, a few interesting points. The UK stands out with a market of about USD 55.22 million.
Yeah.
And quite a robust growth rate, 5.6% CAGR. The report suggests that's likely fueled by, increasingly ambitious recycling targets and initiatives.
Right.
Germany, which has always had pretty strong environmental rules, has a bigger market, about USD 65.08 million, but the growth rate's a bit lower, around 5%.
Okay.
Then you have France and Italy showing slightly more modest growth, 4% and 4.2% respectively. And Russia, which actually has a pretty significant market size, USD 50.95 million, has a more subdued growth projection, about 3.8%.
So it sounds like in Europe, the big theme is really minimizing landfill.
Precisely. Yeah, the dominant philosophy there is heavily geared towards supporting what people call the circular economy.
Right.
Which, basically means trying to keep resources in use for as long as possible, get the most value out of them while they're being used, and then crucially, recover and regenerate the materials at the end of their life. Anything but just final disposal.
Okay. Now let's shift focus to a region that sounds like it's got some really dynamic growth happening, Asia Pacific. Currently about 23% of the global market.
Yeah, this is where the report really highlights some rapid expansion. The APAC market is estimated at USD 473.41 million in 2025. Huge number already.
Wow. Bigger than North America or Europe individually right now.
Exactly. But the really striking thing is the growth rate. It's projected to grow at an impressive 8.1% CAGR.
That's fast.
It is. China is obviously a massive part of that, with a market of about USD 198.83 million, growing at 7.6%.
Yeah.
That's driven significantly by just the sheer demand for recycled materials.
Okay.
Then you have India, which stands out with the highest key AGR in the report, 10%, although admittedly it's from a smaller base, around USD 47.34 million market size now.
Still, 10% is huge growth.
Absolutely. And Japan, South Korea, Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, they all show really strong growth rates too. We're talking like 6.6% up to 8.4% across those countries.
So that rapid growth in APAC, what are the key factors really lighting that fire?
Well, the report mainly points to two big things.
Yeah.
Rapid urbanization.
More people moving to cities.
Exactly. And ongoing industrialization.
Yeah.
As these cities boom and economies develop, the amount of waste just naturally goes up massively.
Creates a huge need for solutions then.
A huge need, yeah. And, considerable opportunity for investment and innovation in the waste sector in those regions.
Right. Okay, let's move south now. South America. It represents what, over 5% of the global market?
Yep, just over 5%. The market there stands at about USD 67.63 million in 2025. The growth projection is a bit more moderate, though, around 3.1% CAGR overall for the region.
Okay. And within South America?
Brazil's the biggest player market of around USD 28.95 million, 3.7% CAGR. That growth seems linked to increasing interest and investment in waste energy technologies.
Turning trash into power.
Basically, yeah. Argentina has a smaller market, about USD 11.36 million, but actually a slightly higher growth forecast at 4%. That seems pushed by more investment in sustainable practices generally.
So for South America, it sounds like the potential is tied to, well, continued urbanization like APAC, but maybe also that growing environmental awareness we saw in North America.
I think that's a fair assessment, yes. It's a mix of factors, but those seem key.
What about the Middle East? It's a smaller slice.
It is, yeah, around 2% of the global market, estimated at about USD 60.87 million in 2025. But the growth rate is pretty healthy, actually 5.7% TAGR projected.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Turkey, they're the main players there.
Yeah.
And they're all showing growth rates above 6%.
And why is that?
The report attributes that to, well, increasing environmental awareness, but maybe more significantly at a governmental level there, plus some significant investments going into modern waste management infrastructure.
Okay, so government initiatives seem to be playing a big role in shaping the market there.
Definitely looks that way.
And finally, let's touch on Africa, currently representing about 1%.
Around 1%, yeah. Africa's waste management market is about USD 50.05 million in 2025, with a projected CAGR of 5.3%.
So still growing quite well.
It is. South Africa has the largest share, about USD 17.62 million market, growing at 6.2%. And Nigeria is mentioned, smaller market at USD 4 million, but growing at 5.5%.
And the potential there.
The report really underscores the huge growth potential across the continent. But, I mean, it also highlights the very real challenges that exist around developing the necessary infrastructure. That's kind of the bottleneck.
Right. So a picture emerges, doesn't it? We've got this global market. North America and Europe are the big established players.
Mm-hmm.
But Asia Pacific is clearly where the most rapid expansion is happening right now.
That's the takeaway on the regions, yeah.
Okay, let's dig into the fundamental forces then. What's actually propelling this whole market forward? What are the key drivers?
Okay, so the report identifies several. First, just the increasing demand that comes directly from industrial development.
Yep.
More industry.
More waste. We said it before.
Exactly. It's a major catalyst. Second, technology. Advancements in tech are playing a really crucial role, driving innovation in, more efficient, more sustainable ways to treat and recycle waste.
Better mousetraps, basically.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Better ways to handle the waste. And thirdly, there's that growing public awareness we talked about. Environmental issues, sustainability. People, businesses, governments, they're all demanding more responsible waste management.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. More output needs handling, better tech provides options, and a more conscious public demands better solutions. But what's holding it back? What's stopping even faster growth? Are there significant restraints?
Yeah, absolutely. The report highlights some key breaks on the market too.
Yeah.
A really significant one, especially, in developing regions, is just the lack of proper infrastructure.
Basic pipes and plants kind of thing?
Yeah, collection systems, treatment facilities, recycling plants. If you don't have that basic setup, the market's ability to grow and use modern solutions is just, well, limited.
Naturally.
And additionally, sometimes it's just a lack of awareness or education among the public about proper waste management that can really hinder adopting better approaches at the community level.
So even with growing awareness in some places, there's still a big need for education and just building the basics in others. Okay, looking ahead now, what key trends does the report see shaping the future of this market?
It points to a couple of really interesting ones. One is how our consumer habits are changing, especially with electronics.
Ah, the e-waste again?
Exactly. It means more electronic waste is entering the recycling stream. I mean, think how quickly we upgrade phones, laptops.
Yeah.
The lifespans are getting shorter and shorter.
Yeah, true.
The other big trend is government action. More rules, stricter policies impacting the waste sector all over the world.
Pushing for more recycling, things like that?
Yeah, generally pushing for higher recycling rates, stricter standards for how waste is disposed of, and promoting, more sustainable practices overall.
Okay, right. Let's maybe drill down a bit deeper into the specific segments within the market itself now. The report looks at it by waste type, by service, and whether it's hazardous or not. What stood out there?
Okay, so waste type first. The report suggests that e-waste, that electronic stuff, is likely to become increasingly dominant as a segment.
Because there's just so much of it.
So much of it, and it keeps coming. Plus, it's tricky stuff, right? It's got valuable materials you can recover,
Yeah.
but also hazardous components.
Mhm.
So managing it properly is crucial. But interestingly, the report also identifies municipal solid waste, the household stuff, as the fastest growing segment by volume.
Just because of the sheer amount.
The sheer quantity, yeah. And the increasing focus everywhere on better recycling programs and reducing how much of that stuff ends up in landfill.
Okay. And what about the services? Collection, landfill, incineration? What's the picture there?
Well, currently, landfill is still the biggest segment service-wise. It holds the largest share.
But maybe not for long.
Well, the report highlights that incineration is expanding rapidly, particularly for waste streams that are, hard to recycle or maybe not economical to recycle, and also for hazardous waste.
And is that the waste-to-energy thing again?
Often, yes. Modern incineration plants often include technology to recover energy, usually heat, turning that waste into potentially electricity or district heating. So that makes it more attractive.
Right. And finally, the breakdown by hazardous versus non-hazardous waste.
Yeah. So hazardous waste actually makes up the largest market share when you categorize it that way.
Really? Why is that?
It's largely down to the really stringent regulations around it. Think industrial chemicals, medical waste. It requires specialized, often complex, and costly handling.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the non-hazardous waste sector is also seeing significant growth. And that's being driven by all these sustainability initiatives across different industries.
Yeah.
The report even gives an example.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like wineries increasingly using non-hazardous clarifying agents instead of traditional ones. So then the waste product is non-hazardous, but it still needs managing. It's part of that broader sustainability push.
Huh. It's really insightful, actually, seeing how different sectors and even consumer choices are kind of rippling through this whole waste landscape.
Definitely.
Now, this is clearly a massive dynamic market. Who are the big companies playing in this space?
Well, the report says it's highly competitive. You've got a mix of huge multinational corporations and smaller, more regional players. Some of the big global names mentioned are Waste Management, Suez, Veolia, Republic Services, Biffa, Clean Harbors, the usual suspects maybe. These guys typically offer a whole range of services and have pretty extensive operations.
And the report even mentions some recent activity, right? Like deals or new tech?
Yeah, just a couple of examples to show things are moving. It mentions ISB Global launching some new software in North America back in May 2024, aimed at making trash collection and processing more efficient.
Okay, tech side.
And on the deals side, it highlights Biffa buying a company called Hamilton Waste and Recycling in Scotland in November 2023. Apparently, that strengthens BIFA's position in handling construction and demolition waste.
Right, so consolidation and tech improvements happening.
Yeah, those examples kind of illustrate that ongoing activity and, jockeying for position within the industry.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together then. What are the most important takeaways from this deep dive into the global waste management market in 2025?
Okay, well, firstly, as we've heard, it's a truly substantial market, isn't it? Well over $1 trillion globally right now, and it's still growing significantly.
That's 6% CAGR, yeah.
Exactly. And that growth is being fueled by this complex mix of things.
Mm-hmm.
More industrial activity, better technology for handling waste, and that growing environmental awareness and pressure.
But it's not all smooth sailing.
No, definitely not. It's also facing those headwinds, especially the lack of infrastructure in many places, and still needing more public understanding and engagement sometimes. And of course, those big regional differences with APAC really standing out as the fastest growing region to watch.
And digging into the segments, what were the key things to remember there?
Right. So, type-wise, keep an eye on e-waste becoming more dominant, even while regular household waste, MSW, is the biggest volume growth area.
Okay.
Service-wise, landfill is still king for now, but incineration, especially with energy recovery, is gaining ground fast.
Got it.
And category-wise, hazardous waste holds the biggest market share due to regulations, but the non-hazardous sector is growing strongly, often linked to those broader sustainability trends.
Okay. So, considering all these trends, the scale of this industry, here's a final thought maybe for everyone listening to ponder. What innovative solutions or, I don't know, policy changes do you think will be most critical, to effectively tackle the world's growing waste challenges in the years ahead? Because it feels like it's not just about figuring out where the trash goes anymore, right? It's
Yeah.
more fundamentally about how do we manage resources better? How do we really move towards that circular, more sustainable model?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.